Ladies.
Welcome. I'm Lex McCusker, the Director of Student Entrepreneurship Programs here at George Washington University. And I'm pleased to be your host today at this episode of George Talks Business. George Talks Business is a series of conversations with successful business people and entrepreneurs hosted by the GW School of Business. It's also part of over 24 activities that are being held this week as part of Entrepreneurship Week at GW. Programs helping to promote and encourage entrepreneurship among GW students, faculty, staff, and alumni. Today, I'm talking with Corinne McCormack. Corinne is currently the president of Corinne McCormack Consulting. She's the former vice president and fashion director at FGX International, and the former president of her own company, Corinne McCormack, Inc. And she's the author of a new book. The book is called From Living Room to Boardroom, How I Launched and Sold a Multi-million-dollar business. Thank you. So Corinne, welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you.
You have had an amazing career. You started off as a student from GW, which is always a good way to start, right? Went into the fashion industry, became fairly successful as a product manager for a U.S. jewelry business, but the business cratered, right? And you got a pink slip. And that was the impetus to start your own company, which was great. Built out a very successful business in fashion, jewelry, accessories, primarily eyeglass chains. Then you moved into fashion eyewear, fashion reading glasses. And anybody who's ever Googled Corinne McCormack will see quite an array of beautiful fashion eyewear. But you built that business over years and hard work. And in fact, 9/11 had a huge impact on you, right? The business almost went out of business, as I recall.
Yeah.
But you survived and had a really successful exit, sold the business to FGX. And I want to talk about all that stuff. But first, I want to go to essentially the bottom line of the business.
Well, I first of all want to apologize for the name Corinne McCormack because it's so long. So sitting here, you're listening to you. She's president of Corinne McCormack Consulting, and she's president of Corinne McCormack Inc. But unfortunately, that was my name.
I just call that's just good branding. I think that's branding. I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, it's funny. I'll just tell you a quick story because when I originally named my company, I wanted to call it like Corinne Jewelry or Corinne something or something, Ava, my middle name. And I went ahead with a lawyer and I had him check it out. And he comes back and he goes, "Look, I'm really sorry, but you can't use the name Corinne. It's not going to work." Like, oh no, and I didn't have a marketing team, it was just me and a sales rep, and so I sat down with him, I'm like, I don't know what to do, I need to come up with a name. And he says, why don't you call it Corinne McCormack? And I was like, what? And he then convinced me that people really do love to know who the designer is. And so it was something that I then really appreciated and moved forward with, and now use it all the time.
Literally made a name for yourself.
That's
right?
exactly true.
So one of the things in the book that I loved was the 8 qualities of an entrepreneur. And let me read them. Hang on.
Oh, Lex, I love you.
My color specs.
Color is one of the things that was very important to my brand, and so I'm totally thrilled that you're wearing those glasses, and they look really good, so thank you.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to hear. All right, so here's the 8. Passion, drive, self-sufficiency, inquisitiveness, communication, leadership, vision, and decisiveness. I know from reading your book that you have all of these in abundance, but mere mortals don't have all these. Tell me about what's the most important. Do you have to have all of them, and how did they factor into your success?
Well, the truth is, I do have them in abundance, but you're talking to me after being in my career for 15 years in corporate America and then 25 years in my own business. So if you talk to me when I first started my company, I was an entrepreneur, but I didn't necessarily have all of these qualities as well developed as I did later on. And that's what I would say, is that when I sat down to write my book, my first question was like, what do I share with you? How can I tell you if you can be an entrepreneur, if you too can be successful? Because if I can do it, you can do it. Well, there are certain things that you need to have, and what I found was to me, the most important quality is passion. Why passion? Because if you ask your friend, where did you go for dinner last night? I went last night and had prime rib, my favorite. And if you said, how is it? And I go, oh, which is true. Oh my God, the prime rub was delicious. I loved it. It was so good. And we had potato skins, and it was just amazing. You're going to want to try that restaurant. But if you ask me, how was the restaurant? I went, oh, it's really good. No passion, no enthusiasm, no reason for you to want to go there. So I think that's the most important. But there are other aspects that I want to just talk about really briefly, because I think everybody who wants to be an entrepreneur, these are the qualities you should have, and if you don't have them today, you should think about this or keep it in mind and then develop them as you're developing your career. And we'll talk about that, but I don't believe you need to go out of college and start a career tomorrow, and I don't believe if you hit 30 and you haven't started a business, you're a failure. I just read this wonderful article in the New York Times. It was about a tech entrepreneur, and they did a study of all entrepreneurs, and the most important, most successful entrepreneurs are over 40. And I think that really is against what the millennial generation thinks, because you think everybody should be Mark Zuckerberg. And if you're 25 or 30 and haven't created something like Facebook, then what? But I'm here to tell you that you really do need to have a career and to have some background before you could go out and be successful. Not everybody. Certain people have certain abilities that you might be able to do it more quickly, but some people don't, and I was one of those people. But the other qualities you need are drive, which drive is the urge to attain a goal. And quite frankly, if you're a GW student and you're going to graduate from this school, you've got drive. We don't even have to go any further. Self-sufficiency. Again, this is something you learn in college at GW. You have to be self-sufficient. You have to know when papers are due and exams are due, you have to make sure you're there. And it's the same thing with the business. You need to know what needs to be done, and even if you have a team of people working with you, you need to know what's going on to make sure that things are running smoothly, and if things aren't running smoothly, you're going to step in and fix it, because there is no opportunity to have things fall apart and then say, do over, sorry, I made a mistake, we're going to do this over. In business, if your customer walks in and there's an error, that's all that they know about your business. So you do need to be self-sufficient. But on the other side of self-sufficiency, you also need to rely on other people, and we'll talk about networking and the importance of that. And inquisitiveness, meaning you're eager for knowledge. So it's easy for me to sit here with college students and or even alums, and say it's important to be inquisitive. And when you're in school, hopefully you're inquisitive and out there learning as much as you can. But it's even more challenging and more important when you go out into the world of business or go out into launching your own company to maintain that willingness, that wanting to know more and always be looking for what else is out there. So if for my own life, because I'm in the fashion business, I read 3 to 4 fashion magazines every month. I get a trade publication, Women's Wear Daily. I get 2020 Optical, which is a trade publication in the optical industry, Vision Monday in the optical industry, New York Times every day. I just want to be on top of what's going on. That's just reading. Then, of course, I want to be involved with what's happening in pop culture. I want to see what people are wearing on the street. I want to see what people are talking about. I'm always inquisitive. I'm always interested, and I'm always trying to learn. Communication, the ability to convey or exchange information. So communication is important at all parts of your life, but when you're in a business and you're representing a company, you're going to be talking to suppliers, customers, your employees. You need to be able to convey that passion, that enthusiasm, that idea, so that people get it and want to work with you. It's very important. You also need leadership. And again, leadership comes. It's the act of guiding people. So In college, some of you may be leaders already. You may be starting up organizations. There's lots of ways that you could be a leader. But particularly if you want to be the head of an organization, leadership skills are important and something you need to develop. Vision. Now, ironically, I was in the vision industry, so of course I needed to have good vision. Or at least now that I don't want to have good vision, because I do want to wear glasses. But vision is really important, and that's the ability to see into the future. So for example, Lex and I were just talking on our way over here, and I said, I think in the next 30 years there won't be any retail stores. There's going to be a smattering of department stores and shopping malls across the country in the larger cities. And the rest of you, if you don't live in or near a large city, the internet is all going to be all that you're going to be able to use, which today you're like, oh, I don't care, but maybe 30 years from now you might feel differently, because I happen to have affinity for that.
I do hope you're wrong about that.
I might be wrong, but that's my vision.
Yeah.
Decisiveness, able to make decisions quickly and efficiently. And it's interesting because I was actually speaking to a young Nana, Nana Agamon, and she graduated from GW. She's really good on social media. And we were talking, and she said to me, sometimes I have to make a decision, and I like think about it, and I belabor it. What should I do? What should I do? And my suggestion to her was, get the facts as you know them, make that decision, and move on. Because the worst thing is to keep going back and forth, should I, shouldn't I, should I, shouldn't I, make the decision, and then go back and say, did I make the right decision? It's like if you make that decision, you've got to assume it's the right decision, that you used as much information as you could, and if circumstances change and you need to reverse course, you do it. So all of those qualities are really important to be an entrepreneur.
All right. So let's go back in history a little bit now. Then you graduate from GW, you're pre-med, majoring in philosophy.
I know, go figure.
You're going to tell us about that. But you're not an overnight success. So tell us about your early career. You leave GW and you go into work for...
Well, the truth is, I was a pre-med student, but I didn't realize that I should really, in order to be a successful doctor, I should really love what I'm studying. To me, it was just like I had to study pre-med to be a doctor. And so my grades were great when I was a freshman, sophomore. By the time I was a junior or senior, I was like, oh, I'm done. Which, again, is not a lot of... You don't want to go to that doctor. So I fortunately didn't even take my MCATs. I'm like, let's postpone that. Let me get a job. I'll work for 6 months. Now I'm going to really study, and I'm going to prove I could become a doctor. And so fortunately, thank goodness for GW and GW's recruiting efforts, and they had Macy's here. And Macy's came to talk to us about the executive recruiting program. And I just went because I had done retail in the summer when I was going through school. And I thought, I know that. Let me just go and interview. Long story short, I got a position. Unbeknownst to me, it was a very difficult position to get, but I was a natural at it. So I was very lucky that I found that. So the beauty about being in retailing is as soon as I graduated from this program, I was a manager, which I liked. I was a manager in charge of 20 salespeople in Herald Square Macy's. And that felt really good. And I was like pinching myself. I just graduated from college and I'm a manager and I'm making $9,900 a year. I thought it was so much money. And I was so excited. And then I ended up following the career path at so 6 months later, I realized I haven't even opened up a book. And at this point I had an awakening, which was, I don't want to be a doctor. I want to be where I am. Thank goodness. So that's where I stayed. Stayed with Macy's, became a buyer, had a lot of success with Macy's. And then the way I structured my career is I just looked for what was the next step. What did I want to learn next? Even though when I was at Macy's, I felt I was entrepreneurial because I did entrepreneurial things, but I didn't have the resources to say, I'm going to start a company tomorrow. So instead of doing a company, what I did was I became an entrepreneur in larger companies, and I continue to develop my career, always learning something new and different. So I went from retail to Avon Products, where I did wholesale and product development, and then I went to a jewelry company, and then in the jewelry company is where they went Chapter 11 or bankrupt. And at that point, I was ready to get a pink slip, get severance, and hopefully use that to launch my business, which When I left that company, I didn't know what my business would be.
So tell us how that goes. You scrape together money from friends and family. You've got a great network in the industry.
Yes.
You find an opportunity, though, right? You start
Yes.
with eyeglass chains, which at that point are sort of utilitarian. I mean, they could be like rope or something, and you turn them into a fashion accessory.
Yes.
How does that happen? Tell us that story.
Well, the cool thing is I actually had 3 different business ideas, and I had a friend in Hong Kong who invited me to come join him because we were going to launch a business together. And then I went to see him, and I subsequently also went to a factory for jewelry where I developed these eyeglass chains. And what made the eyeglass chain special, as soon as I saw the samples come out from the factory, the price was right, the look was right. I knew that there wasn't anything like that in the marketplace because I had lost a pair of glasses, and when I lost like $100 pair of sunglasses and immediately had to go buy a second pair. And I said, I'm going to buy a chain to protect them. But they didn't have that, fashion chains. So I was like, well, maybe I should develop fashion chains. And so that's what I did. And I developed special, unique packaging so that it was a card with glasses on it, and then the chain hung off the card. And that packaging is what set my product apart from anybody else. And I recommend that anybody who goes into their own business, number one, you need to be successful, you need to do something unique and different. For me, it was unique products. For you, it could be a unique service. It could be something special about you or what you're offering that nobody else is offering. Or it could be the marketplace you're doing, something that's unique and different. And have a good intellectual property lawyer, because if I didn't have a good lawyer, I would have had a lot of trouble.
Yeah, they say imitation's the sincerest form of flattery. From reading your book, I know you don't subscribe to that theory.
No, I guess I
us-
was
tell us
flattered,
about-
but also really upset. So imagine, here I am, I launch my brand new business, we start shipping it in June, there's a lot of good buzz, I'm getting written up in fashion magazines, and I think it was about September or August, I decided that I needed to go to, I think I don't have a mic at the moment, oh, there I did. I realized in August that I really should talk to a lawyer about protecting my trademark, which was my name, and also protecting my packaging. So I went to meet with a lawyer, met him, he said, absolutely, we could take care of this is all patentable, trademarkable, we'll handle it. I walked out of his office, and I'm very inquisitive, so I wanted to go over to Bloomingdale's and just see what was going on in the sunglass department. I walk into Bloomingdale's, and literally on the floor, now this is 3 months after my first shipment, on the floor is a major fashion designer with a card that looks just like mine, but where my name was, her name is. And I was like, whoa, what do I do? And so this was in the 1990s. We didn't even have cell phones, so I had to go find a public phone, dial the lawyer, and I'm like, you're not going to believe this. I'm in Bloomingdale's, and I found blah, 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 with my card. And he's like, well, Corinne, buy the card so we have an example, but now you have a decision to make. And this is where decisiveness comes in. You can send this company a cease and desist letter, which you can send it, which obviously you have the right to do. But should this company want to fight you and say, no, it was our idea first, they can countersue, and you'll be out $25,000 to $50,000 before you've even started. That literally would have bankrupted us.
Ouch.
But fortunately, I spoke with my husband. He's a professor, but he also was my partner at night. And I just said to him, this is the story. What do we do? I think I should send a letter. And he's like, absolutely send a letter, because if we don't, nobody will know who you are in 6 months. Mm-hmm. And so we gave the lawyer the okay. He sent out the letter. I subsequently found out within like a week or two, 4 other companies had knocked me off. So not only did I have the letter going to this major designer, but there were 4 other accessory companies that had the same issue. And we sent out letters to all of them, and it just got better, because after 10 days I heard from this major designer who is extremely reputable and sent this really nice letter saying, we are sorry. She wasn't aware of it. It was a licensee. And we will handle it. We will pull everything off, and you have no problem.
No, that's a great story.
Yeah, it was a great story. But there was about 2 weeks of like nail biting.
Yeah, I'll bet. So you have a superpower.
I do.
Says I. You have this ability to find an unmet need in the marketplace. I mean, nobody thought of designer reading glasses until you did, right?
That's
Where does that come
true.
from? I mean, is this a gift from heaven or something you cultivate, or
It's
how does it happen?
It's just something I like to do. I enjoy looking out in the world and saying, what do I need? What do I want that doesn't exist? How can I make something to take care of that? So when my focus was on optical, I developed actually 5 patents of products that had never existed before. And that's just something I love to do. And I believe everybody has their own unique superpower. So for me, it's product development and finding a niche in the market and saying nobody's doing this and that's what I'm going to do. But everybody in here has got some superpower. It's usually what you think is nothing important. You know, that thing like, oh yeah, I'm good at that, but so what? That's the stuff that nobody else is good at, that you should start to appreciate, understand, and develop and nurture. Appreciate and understand. Appreciate is really important. Things that you're good at are really important.
Great. So you are also an active networker. Tell us about why it's important for you and for entrepreneurs in general to be good at networking.
Okay, so I started my company after working for several major corporations for 15 years, and that provided me with a large network of contacts. And when you launch your own business, I also considered my company a company without walls, because I couldn't afford to hire people, but I could hire freelancers. So I hired a graphic artist, I hired a marketing person, but temps, you know, freelancers. Hired designers. I hired, at the beginning, packing people until I could afford to bring somebody on full time. And then, you know, so it was always, my accountant was originally only outsourced. That's really important. So that network helped me to grow my business. But then once I got involved in the industry, I started looking for industry organizations that I could partner with and just delving in and becoming part of it. But it was really important to note that I didn't become a member, for example, Optical Women's Association. I didn't become a member because I was a woman looking for something. I saw that they had an Optical Women's Association and I said, I'm a woman, I'm in the optical business, I belong there. And I went and I really partnered. I actually became a mentor to other women in the industry. And then when I sent them a letter about something that I thought was not to my liking, that I thought they could do better, they wrote back and said, we really love what you said, thank you. Would you like to be president-elect? And so I ended up becoming president of the organization. But I'm always willing to partner with people. I'm always willing to give back and work with people. So, and that's really important. It's important to network with your professors, with your other students, but not because you want to get something from them, but because you enjoy meeting and being with people.
Yeah. Well, I want to take this opportunity to say thank you. You've been a mentor and a judge in the GW New Venture competition for many years and have helped many students at GW, so I appreciate that very much.
I will just let everybody know that I have an Instagram page, which is called Corinne Consults. And if you go on Corinne Consults, you can also connect with me on the web and on my website. And I would love to hear from people. Just send me comments, questions. I'd be happy to connect with you. It's really important, and I'm here.
So as I look out in the audience, I see your son Adam here. Hello, Adam. Adam's a GW alum, so you got him started off on the right path. I appreciate that.
He was also an entrepreneur at 16,
Yeah.
I'll just say. Started his own company.
And he shows up in your book a whole lot.
He does.
Tell us about being a mom and an entrepreneur and how you balance all of those things in your career.
Well, it was interesting because I started my company in the 90s. And in the 90s, if you wanted to be a successful executive, you had to choose between family or company. And I didn't want to choose, I wanted both. So I also knew, I started my company when he was 2 years old. And what I did was, I had the same enthusiasm and excitement to be with him when he was there as I did for my business when he left to go to nursery school. And that was something that I really loved and nurtured, and felt that I knew that I had the skills that if my son came home and wanted to play with me for 3 hours, I'd put aside work, play with him for 3 hours, and I'd stay up late that night and just finish what I had to do. So I love the opportunity to kind of bring a family into the business and make the family part of the business. Fortunately today, I believe more and more companies are much more open to women having families, more understanding, and I think that's really important. But back in the 90s, I was all about empowering women, I had a woman who started as a babysitter that did my packing, and she then became my first full-time employee. She worked for me for 11 years, and in the time she worked for me, she got her, first she got her BA, and then she got her master's, and she is now out there as a nutritionist with her master's. So I didn't just do it for me, I did it for other women.
And you've always, in my reading of your biography and your book, you always treat people as an end, not a means, right?
Yeah.
That you invest in them, not for what they can do for you, but as an end in themselves. I think that's a nice quality. In terms of networking, though, what advice do you have for students now for networking? How should they, as undergraduates or MBA students, pursue their networking?
I would just say find what you're passionate about and go out and join different activities. Don't sit in your room. Don't sit around wondering like, oh, what should I be studying? Oh, I wish I was working on that test. I should be writing that paper. If you're not ready to write the paper or study for the test, go look and see what's out there and go join something and be with people. It's very different in 2019 than it was back in the 90s.
Yeah.
I mean, I could only find things through word of mouth. I had to send out letters to customers and make telephone calls on old phones, not on a cell phone. But you guys, you have the internet, so you could go on the internet and there's all sorts of websites that you could connect with, and don't think that connecting online is enough, because I really do believe it's connecting in person that's important. So I would say find out where you can meet people in person and go out and meet them.
And I think the other thing that I just want to highlight is how you approach networking, right? If you start with what am I going to get out of this transaction, it generally doesn't work very well.
Well, I have a very funny story.
Yeah, say it.
All right, so my husband, my son was 2 years old, and I had just started my own business, and my mother-in-law said, your brother-in-law is dating this woman who's an editor of a publication, 2020 magazine. You should meet her. And I was like, I don't want to meet her. I just don't feel comfortable, you know, it's his girlfriend, leave her alone. So I had zero interest in pursuing this. It wasn't like I said, oh, this is my in. Push comes to shove, and finally she convinces me I need to meet him. He wants us to meet her, so we all plan a day at the beach. I go to the beach, I start talking to her. Within 5 minutes, we become fast friends. I loved her. And we talked, she goes to me, how many items are in your line? I said, oh, I have about 100 styles. She goes, thank God. I was afraid I was going to meet some lady who's like sitting home, you know, stringing beads, and you're my boyfriend's sister-in-law. And I'm like, and I'm so glad you're nice, because I was afraid I was going to be sitting here with somebody I didn't like. So, you know, there's an opportunity where I had networking, but it wasn't something I planned. It just happened.
Yeah, the role of serendipity is easy to underestimate. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah,
that's good.
And it's fun to follow whatever comes your way,
Yeah.
and not predetermined and say, nope, that's not for me.
So, tell us another good networking story. You've met some folks just in the course of your life that have had a big influence on you. TV personalities.
Oh, yes. There's a woman, her name was Charlotte Krupp. And back in the 90s, I mean, you're right, I've met a lot of people, but she stands out in my mind. I was also very involved with the Vision Council, which actually is based in Arlington, Virginia. Great organization, and I didn't just become a member, I became chairman of their Marketing Communications Committee. And so I'm at my booth at a trade show, and the person who works for the organization says, we have somebody from the Today Show, she'd like to meet you, would you be okay? I'm like, absolutely, bring her by. So this really lovely woman in this beautiful pink and white gingham suit, I still remember it, blonde hair, walks into my booth, big smile, so sweet. Oh, Corinne, it's so good to meet you. I'm so happy to meet you, and I've heard all about you, and I've seen your product, and I'm at the age that I need reading glasses too, and thank goodness you are designing readers that I can wear. And I'm like, Charlotte, come on in. And I showed her my whole line, and long story short, we became good friends. I then said to her, because she's on the Today Show, I said, well, I actually sell my readers in Bloomingdale's, and I heard through the salespeople, Katie Couric was in last week, and she bought a pair of my glasses. Really? Let me call Katie. So she sits there. By this time we had cell phones. She gets on the phone, she calls Katie. She's like, "Hi Katie, I'm here in the booth with Corinne McCormack." "Oh, yes, oh, you love this, great, good to talk to you, bye." And that was it. And it was just very serendipitous. And this was somebody who just became very important in my life.
Wow. Well, I'm afraid our time has flown by once again. Thank you, Corinne. I really appreciate your taking time to talk with us. I also want to thank all of you here in the audience and online. And let me take this opportunity to invite you to the next episode of George Talks Business. George Talks Business will continue this coming Monday at noon with the GW Alumni Veterans Panel. Our guests will be MBA alumnus Justin Bakewell, who's the Executive Director of the J.P. Morgan Private Bank, as well as Lourdes Tiglau, the Strategic Partnerships Office at Team Rubicon Global. So we look forward to seeing you all then, either in person here in Foggy Bottom or online. Thank you very much for attending.
Thank you.